Hello everybody, my name is Vandana and today we're going to be talking about the scope of psychology in India. You might have seen in the past decade there are so many people who are enrolling themselves either in their bachelor's or master's in psychology. Is that a new boom that we are seeing and a shift in the profession from engineers, doctors and now to psychologists? Let's find out more. There's a huge scope in the field of psychology in the upcoming years. Let's understand the different field of psychology. What is the kind of job that you will be doing after specializing in that particular field? What is the amount of salary or financials that you can expect? The different fields in psychology is counseling, clinical, organization, forensic, child, school psychology and many more fields that are upcoming in nature. Let's look at each of them one by one. The first field that we're going to be talking about is counselling psychology. To be a counsellor, you need to have your master's in counselling psychology and a PG diploma in counselling. Many often ask me whether people from other fields can also become a counsellor. Well, definitely you can. But be mindful of certain things. One, get your master's in counseling or clinical psychology from an UGC recognized university. Second, get yourself a mentor or a supervisor because you're dealing with human minds over here and it's always better to have someone to supervise you, to mentor you and to correct you if you're going wrong or making any kind of mistakes. How does the job market look like for a counselor? Well, there is this need of counselors seen in the recent years and many are realizing how important mental health is, like how we focus on our physical health. I have seen a lot of my clients as well. In the beginning, they're very reluctant and hesitant to come to therapy. And later on, once they realize the benefits of therapy, they tell everybody. They tell their parents, they tell their friends, they tell in social media and it is something that is, becoming better and there is a boom in India. So definitely for counselors there is ample opportunities and job availability. So initially your financials can be a little less. Like any other field, when you are entering your profession, definitely it is going to be a little hard to find yourself a place and make a name for yourself. But once you get comfortable, once you get the experience, exposure and your clients come back to you again and they go and tell 2 or 3 other people and through word of mouth, when your name is known to people, definitely you will have more clients and also you will start making money. Next, let's talk about clinical psychology. To become a clinical psychologist, you need to have your master's in clinical or counseling psychology and an MPhil from an RCI recognized university. Your MPhil license is very important in order to be a clinical psychologist. What is the role of a clinical psychologist? What do? They do the assessments, they diagnose the different disorders and they provide therapy. Where can you work after getting your RCI license? So you can work in hospitals, you can work in clinics, some of them have their own practice. So a clinical psychologist generally works side by side with a psychiatrist. There is ample opportunities for clinical psychologists, so they can even get into the teaching line, they can get into research or they can work in hospitals. So financially, a clinical psychologist again might have a little bit of difficulty in the initial years, but as and when they establish themselves, they can see a steep in the rise of salary. Next, let's talk about forensic psychologist. In order to be a forensic psychologist, you need to have your master's in forensic psychology or in clinical psychology and you need to do your MPhil in forensic psychology. Forensic psychology is a pretty interesting field and I'm also very interested in that field as it involves analyzing the behavior pattern of criminals, their intent, their role, their influence, their personality and so on. What is the role of a forensic psychologist? A forensic psychologist, they work in the criminal justice system, they work in prison, they work with police, they work with victims, they work with offender rehabilitation. Forensic psychology is a pretty new field and the scope of the same is definitely in rise in the coming years. The financials of a forensic psychologist is very similar to other pathways of psychology. So initially there is a little bit of hump, but as and when you establish yourself as a professional, definitely there is a rise in your financials. Next, let's understand a bit about child psychologist. So to be a child psychologist, you need to have your master's in counseling or clinical psychology, and you can have your PG diploma in child counseling. There is a huge demand for child counselors or psychologists because in many of the universities and colleges, it is mandatory to have a child counselor, and the scope for child counselors have increased tremendously, and people have come to realize the importance of child counselors in the early lives of students, especially in school and also in colleges, to ensure that the students have somebody who they can rely on and can guide them and can support them whenever needed or required. What is the pay scale for a child psychologist? Well, it varies from the place of work of a child counselor or a psychologist. The initial starting pay is anywhere between 25,000 to 30,000, and it can scale up depending upon the institution you work in and the experience that you gain. Let's talk about organization psychologist. How to be an organization psychologist? You need to have your master's in organization psychology, and the role of an organization psychologist is to empower, motivate the employees of the organization, to enhance the structure of the organization, and to assist the HR in the recruitment drive of the company. In India, the job for an organization psychologist can be a little bit dry, but it is an upcoming profession, and many organizations are realizing the importance and need for an organization psychologist. Many often confuse organization psychologist to a HR, but there is a difference between the two. A HR is mainly driven towards making sure that the employees that they choose in the organization are a right fit to the organization requirements. Whereas an organization psychologist, they focus on the mental well-being of the employees after joining the work front. Are they able to handle the stress? Are their goals matching with the organization requirement? How is their performance? Can there be any way in which the performance of an individual be enhanced? All of these things are taken care by the organization psychologist. The pay scale for an organization psychologist is slightly better than all other fields of psychology. Their starting pay ranges anywhere between 45,000 to 50,000 depending upon the organization that they join and the experience that the individual holds. Next, let's talk about sports psychology. Sports psychology is relatively new in the spectrum of the different fields of psychology, and it is an upcoming field. The major role of a sports psychologist is to motivate and enhance the well-being of the sports personnel. So they can majorly work with different sports teams, clubs, and training facilities for different sports. To be a sports psychologist in India, you need to have your bachelor's and master's in sports psychology, and few professionals go ahead to pursue their doctorate degree in sports psychology. India is a country wherein we see and play a lot of sports, and definitely this field has a lot of opportunity, and a lot of institutions are now offering sports psychology as a specialization and option in their curriculum. The pay for the sports psychologist depends upon the team or club that they are associated with, but there is an ample amount of increase in the number of sports psychologists in India and in abroad as well. I hope this video was helpful. If you're liking our content, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.